Thanks for joining us on NDTV 24/7. The big breaking news, the Supreme Court has asked N. Srinivasan, the BCCI boss, to step down. For more on that, let's go across to my colleague Amitoj Singh for more.
It is indeed the biggest blow that's come to the BCCI or Indian cricket ever since the IPL scandal broke out, the IPL spot fixing scandal broke out. This is the first time that the Supreme Court has made an observation, as a suggestion or almost a threat to the BCCI, suggesting that if you do not, the BCCI president does not step down N. Srinivasan, then they will have to order an issue. Just to take you through what the Supreme Court has categorically said in their observations at the hearing today, which has been adjourned to day after. They started by saying that N. Srinivasan, he does need to step down for a fair probe. Remember, this does not mean that he needs to step aside, which he did back in June in 2013 last year. This means that he needs to step down and relinquish his position as BCCI president. That, in addition to that, they also said that it is nauseating that he is stuck to his position and continued to stay on that position as BCCI chief. The Supreme Court went on record to say that and actually questioned that why is N. Srinivasan sticking to his chair. They again said that if Srinivasan goes, that's the only way cricket can be cleaned, adding also that the probe panel report submitted by Justice Mudgal committee contains very, very serious allegations. Coming as a respite to some of the cricketers who are apparently named in that report, the Supreme Court decided that they will not reveal the names and the contents of that secret envelope which was submitted by the Justice Mudgal committee to the Supreme Court, and instead showed that to the BCCI lawyers. What is the key thing out here? The BCCI is not breaking its silence. Nobody from the BCCI has spoken out yet. We have tried a number of people in the BCCI. They are not breaking their silence. Everyone is probably huddled up and trying to figure out what is the best way forward for Mr. N. Srinivasan to decide whether or not he should step down. My colleague Rika Roy broke the news in the Supreme Court, and she managed to get in touch with the petitioner Aditya Verma. She spoke to Aditya Verma, the Cricket Association of Bihar secretary. He's the one who petitioned and has been actually going after the BCCI for quite some time. This is what he had to say.
माननीय उच्चतम न्यायालय ने आज इस मुकदमे को सुनने के लिए निर्धारित किया था और मुकदमे की सुनवाई आधा घंटा तक चली और सील्ड लिफाफा के ऊपर बात आई और उन्होंने बीसीसीआई के लॉयर को माननीय न्यायालय ने कहा कि अगर क्रिकेट को आपको साफ करना है तो श्रीनिवासन को स्टेप डाउन करना पड़ेगा.
Right, that was of course Aditya Verma, the Cricket Association of Bihar secretary, the petitioner in this case. He's the one who actually started it and questioned the entire probe committee that actually decided. The first one, which had two judges, Justice Chauta was one of them in Bombay, and the Bombay High Court actually then decided that this is not substantial. That is when the BCCI actually got back into a huddle and eventually took it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court now has said that N. Srinivasan, the BCCI president, also the ICC president in waiting, needs to step down. That is the only way forward for this. Rika Roy, who's actually the one who broke this story for us at the Supreme Court right now. Rika, I want to throw it to you because you're probably the one who would have heard from the BCCI right now, if at all anyone's heard. Nobody seems to be speaking in the BCCI, and this is something that we've known for a while, that they just kind of go into huddle and don't talk. But have you heard anything from the BCCI? Has anyone said that N. Srinivasan is contemplating at the moment to actually step down?
Well, Amitoj, not yet. We haven't heard anything from the BCCI, but they will have to come out with a reaction at some point of time. Of course, they have been given 2 more days, and going by the way Mr. Srinivasan reacted even the last time around when there was humongous pressure on him to step down, he waited till the last moment and then only just stepped aside. So he will probably be looking at various formulas, talking to his lawyers, various permutations and combinations during the course of the day, and then coming out and giving a public reaction. Not before he would have discussed with his lawyers about the case. He will come out. Also, Amitoj, let me make a point here that Mudgal Commission report was about betting in the IPL. It did not include Mr. Srinivasan's conflict of interest case. Mr. Srinivasan was kept out of the purview of the Mudgal report. The Supreme Court today made an extraordinary observation in this case, saying the way cricket is run is not in cricket administration in India is conducted is all wrong. The fact that N. Srinivasan continued to stay on despite what was happening was nauseating, and he is the person who should go. If he doesn't go, then the court will be forced to pass an order asking him to leave. So this was an extraordinary observation that the court made in view of the Mudgal Commission report during the course of the hearing. In fact, they questioned the BCCI lawyer. Some very, very tough questions were asked to Mr. Sundaram. It was asked to Mr. Sundaram as to why the previous report, previous probe panel, which was set up by the BCCI, which was called illegal and unconstitutional by the Mumbai High Court, submitted a report which is in complete contradiction to the Mudgal Commission report. Also, they said that now the fact that you are coming and telling us that they will giving us guarantees that you will act, change the system. How do we take your guarantees? How do we understand that you are telling us the truth? So some very, very tough questions were asked, and the court came down heavily on the BCCI today, asking the all-powerful chief of the BCCI to leave.
Rika, the other thing that a lot of the viewers I'm sure will be interested in is that the Supreme Court has decided to not actually divulge the details of whatever was in that secret envelope. Can you give us more details about what really went down? Because what I understand is that the Supreme Court did actually show it to the BCCI lawyers but did not divulge it in the open.
Well, Amitoj, one understands that the issue of N. Srinivasan holding on to power only came out with respect to the contents in the sealed envelope. In the Mudgal Commission report, it was very clear that it does not concern Mr. Srinivasan's conflict of interest. It does not talk about his stake in the IPL team in any way. It may have come up with respect to the contents in the sealed envelope, which of course the court decided not to make public. The justice, one of the judges, Justice Patnaik, had a private conversation with BCCI's counsel, Mr. Sundaram, and there were some questions given out to him, and he was asked to come back with those answers by day after tomorrow.
Right. Does that, we've already put on record that actually means that N. Srinivasan has till day after to actually step down, unless, and if he doesn't, then the Supreme Court is within its right, as it's already told the BCCI lawyers, that they can actually pass an order that N. Srinivasan has to step down. Just to let our viewers know, this is news that's coming in for us. Sources have told NDTV that N. Srinivasan has actually refused to comment right now because he's studying the order. Just to repeat what I said, N. Srinivasan has refused to comment. Currently, the BCCI president, who has been asked to step down by the Supreme Court, has refused to comment. He is studying the court order at the moment. Rika, getting back to you, he doesn't really have much time. And in the past, we've seen how the BCCI has come together very quickly in emergency meetings, like the one that was held in June in last year in Chennai. At that point in time, N. Srinivasan did not step down. He stepped aside. In this case, it is very categorical what the Supreme Court is saying, that he has to step down. Does he really need to study the order, you think? Or can he actually just understand from what's being said to him that there is actually no option left for him now?
Amitoj, he has to study the order, he has to consult with his lawyers, and I don't rule out BCCI getting into a huddle in the next 24 hours and deciding the course of action. Of course, if Mr. Srinivasan is to step down as the president of BCCI, that could also have repercussions on his ICC chairmanship, because one doesn't know whether ICC is going to accept a chairman who has been ousted by courts in India. It is very surprising, and it's rather shameful that Supreme Court is running the BCCI, which is basically a group, which is basically a body run by a group of people like a private club. Now the Supreme Court has taken note of the gross irregularities that has been, and they have ordered Mr. Srinivasan to leave. So that may have repercussions on his ICC chairmanship as well. He has to now carefully study it, decide the future course of action, and of course he has to consult his BCCI colleagues. So I don't rule out BCCI getting into a huddle in the course of next 24 hours.
Right, we have with us our chief cricket correspondent Rika Roy, and of course our cricket editor Nikhil Naz. But before I go to them and get their reactions, in addition to what's already happened, let's just listen into what some of the cricket experts who've been commenting and following this story, what did they say when we actually broke this news here on NDTV 24/7.
Yeah, it's a fairly sort of a damning statement that they've made. It'll be interesting to know whether it actually comes in the order that follows in a couple of hours. I believe the hearings are still going on, like I was told. So we need to know what the order says, that you must step down and, or else kind of sort of an implication. But it is and it said that, what they found in the IPL fixing case, they said the situation is nauseating. And this is a judge saying these very strong words. I mean, this is what all of us have been saying for a couple of months now, but it's quite a relief to hear the court say it too. What happens, in future, how things pan out, we won't be able to tell what the reaction of the BCCI is or what they do, or whether Mr. Srinivasan steps down or not. That all depends on the order that the judge may make in a couple of hours' time.
Why are we focusing so much on just one man? If cricket has to be cleaned, and it must, because it has acquired a lot of dirt along the way, along with the money and the power and everything else that's ruined it, what about the rest of the functionaries of the board and everybody else associated with the game? I mean, must not everybody resign for a fair probe? By having one man resign, yes, he's the chief, but do you think he controls everybody and everything? I don't think so. By one man resigning, I'm not so sure how the probe can suddenly be fair, because how much can he interfere? Because there's so many others who are also players, maybe part players in this whole drama. And are we suggesting that the probing authority, whichever it may be, maybe the police or various other organizations, do not have the wherewithal to probe unless the chief goes? I mean, there's so many others who are involved, aren't there?
The first reaction is I'm celebrating. I'm having good Bengali sweets, because I believe that today the channels, all that we have fought for has been justified. Mr. Srinivasan's existence, the fact that he appointed the panel, the fact that he exonerated his own son-in-law, his panel exonerated, all that is now in the past. Today, I think cricket has won. Justice has been done. It is the first steps taken. There are lots of steps. It's maybe just a baby step, but there are going to be a lot of steps ahead, which is showing that the Supreme Court is saying they are not accepting this rubbish that is going on with the BCCI. The fact that they are running it as an exclusive club, and they are now wanting some real action from the BCCI. And that, when you ask the question to Rika, I'd like to also come in on that one, that they've given 2 days, and I do feel that this is to give them a moral way out, that if Srinivasan steps down, instead of stepping aside, as he normally says, if he steps down, then they don't have to take an action. I mean, this is a procedure in politics, in sport, in all aspects, that we are giving you 2 days. Now you step down and let's go further from this.
Right. Of course, those were the people that we spoke to once the breaking news came in about the Supreme Court's order regarding N. Srinivasan and that he should step down. This is not an order from the Supreme Court. This is just a suggestion at the moment. They have told the BCCI lawyers that he needs to step down. This is what they've given them a chance in a sense. My cricket editor, Nikhil Nas, joins me now. Nikhil, we've been following this story since last year, ever since the scandal really broke out. At that point in time in June, I just want to go back to that time when everyone believed after Ajay Shirke and Sanjay Jagdale, BCCI officials, both of them resigned because N. Srinivasan was not willing to step down. At that point in time, everyone believed that at that meeting in Chennai, N. Srinivasan would actually step down. Instead, he stepped aside. That time, we all felt he was cornered. This time too, this is the Supreme Court saying that he needs to step down. Do you think he has any way out now?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say, Amitoj, I understand that this is the situation that has developed right now is something that most experts have been saying for a long time, that this is something that the BCCI should have done right at the start. But you need to thank the BCCI today for what has really happened. If I could put it in one sentence, it's probably they've shot themselves in the foot. Simply because, remember, they're the ones who approached the Supreme Court to say that, listen, I understand that the findings of Mudgul committee are quite grave, and then just let us decide on the punishment. Actually, it's this request by the BCCI which has now led the Supreme Court to tell them that, okay, fine, you want to conduct a probe, but please, firstly, you need to have your president step down because he is, in a sense, involved. It's his son-in-law that they are investigating. So it's only after this BCCI request has the Supreme Court said that had the BCCI not requested it, Supreme Court could have passed the order by itself today. That's the first thing. What would the BCCI do? Is there a way out, you asked? well, you know what, they'll look at loopholes. We've seen it in the past. They've had the president step aside. I understand that the BCCI, the court order right now says he needs to step down, but there is no time frame as to how long he needs to step down. So which, in effect, could be stepping aside. So he could step down so as to say till the probe committee does its finding or comes out with a result, and then who knows, you could obviously have him back, because such is the constitution of the BCCI, that all the powers lie with the BCCI and the men who are part of that BCCI. Also, you need to look at the role of all other BCCI members. If they stood by Srinivasan up until now, what is there to suggest that they will not be by him even when he steps aside or steps down for that matter? We've seen it in the past of presidents who've even left the board and yet been able to control the powers within. What is there to say that Srinivasan won't be able to do that? So I would say that it's a good beginning, but there are many questions that are still unanswered, Amitabh.